I always believed my life was predictable. Steady job, 3 kids, a loving wife, at least, that's what I thought. I wasn't the kind of man to dig through my wife's things. I respected her privacy, never once suspected I had a reason not to. But on that night, curiosity got the better of me. It started with a book. A small, leather-bound journal left carelessly on the nightstand. I wouldn't have touched it if it weren't for the date scribbled on the open page, yesterday. My wife, Anna, had a habit of keeping notes, but this looked different. More personal. More secret. I hesitated. Maybe I should have closed it, put it back, and carried on with my night. But something inside me, the same voice that had been whispering doubts for months, pushed me forward. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. And then, I found the words that shattered my world. He doesn't suspect a thing. I almost feel bad for him, but then I remember, he's an idiot. He provides for the kids, pays the bills, but that's all he's good for. If only I didn't have to look at his pathetic face every morning. If only Michael would finally do it. We could be free. I read the passage over and over, my mind refusing to process it. My wife, Anna, wanted me dead. And Michael? A name I didn't recognize, but clearly, he meant something to her. More than something. Enough to plot against me. I kept reading, page after page, my breath coming in shallow gasps. It got worse. So much worse. The kids love him, but they don't even know. It's almost funny. They think they have such a perfect daddy, but Michael is their real father. Every single one of them. If he'd just get rid of this burden for us, we could finally live the life we deserve. My stomach twisted. My own children weren't mine. I stumbled back from the bed, my vision blurred. The walls of my home, felt like they were caving in. I could hear them downstairs, Anna laughing with the kids, her voice as sweet and warm as ever. But now, it was a mask. A lie. I needed answers. I needed proof. I needed to know exactly how deep this betrayal ran. My hands shook as I placed the diary back exactly where I found it. My mind raced, a storm of confusion, rage, and devastation tearing through me. I needed to be smart. Careful. If Anna truly wanted me dead, I couldn't let her know I had read it. I forced myself to breathe. To think. First, the kids. If what she wrote was true, if they weren't mine, then I needed proof. I had to be absolutely certain before I let this consume me. The next morning, I went through our usual routine. I kissed Anna on the cheek as she poured coffee, pretending nothing had changed. She smiled at me, soft and familiar, as if she hadn't just wished for my death in her private thoughts. I felt sick. Morning, Daddy. My youngest, Lily, threw her arms around me. I held her close, inhaling the scent of her shampoo, and for a moment, I prayed that the diary was just some twisted fantasy. That it was all a lie. But deep down, I knew. I called out sick from work and made an appointment at a private DNA testing center. It wasn't hard. Swabbing my own cheek and collecting samples from the kids under the guise of a fun science experiment took no effort. Anna didn't suspect a thing. Then, I waited. 3 days later, an envelope arrived. I locked myself in the bathroom, my fingers trembling as I ripped it open. 3 names. 3 results. Probability of paternity, 0%. I clenched the paper so hard it crumpled in my grip. My knees hit the tile floor. My children, my babies, weren't mine. They were his. Michael. Whoever he was, he had stolen my wife and my family right out from under me. And Anna, she had let it happen. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, at the man I thought I was. A husband. A father. A provider. A fool. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I waited for Anna to drift off before taking her diary again, flipping through every page, looking for more. And then, I found something new. I told my father, and he agreed. He always knew the kids weren't his grandkids, but he kept quiet for me. He's on our side, unlike that pathetic excuse for a husband I married. He knows Michael is the better man. That's why we need to do this. Why we need to make sure it happens soon. I gritted my teeth so hard I thought they'd crack. Her father knew. The one man I had always trusted to watch over our family. To be a grandfather to my children. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened. My hands curled into fists. This wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just betrayal. This was a conspiracy. And I was at the center of it. I barely made it through breakfast without snapping. Every word Anna spoke, every casual glance she threw my way, felt like a knife between my ribs. She had no idea I knew. That gave me power. I needed more. While she was out running errands, I did something I never thought I would. I searched through her things. Her phone was locked, but her laptop open. Exposed. It took less than 2 minutes to find the emails. Michael. You keep telling me to be patient, but I'm tired of waiting. He's still breathing. You promised me that would change. Anna. I know, baby. It's complicated. I need to make sure everything is in place before we do anything drastic. If we rush, people will suspect. Just a little longer. My stomach turned. This wasn't just an affair. They weren't just hoping I'd leave. They were planning to kill me. I scrolled further, my heart pounding. There were messages between Anna and her father, too. Her father. Michael is right. You need to stop stalling. We've already discussed this, it'll look like an accident. But if you wait too long, people will start asking questions. Anna was playing both of them. Keeping them both calm, feeding them lies to slow things down. But why? I wasn't sure yet, but one thing was clear, my wife and her lover had already decided how my life would end. That meant I had to strike first. That night, I acted normal. Kissed Anna goodnight. Tucked the kids in. Sat in my office pretending to work, while in reality, I was crafting my own plan. The first step. Setting the trap. I knew Michael would want proof I was dead. He didn't trust Anna completely, his emails made that clear. He wanted evidence. So, I gave him some. The next morning, I made sure to leave for work like usual, but instead of heading to the office, I drove straight to a lawyer. I had one goal, to make sure that no matter what happened, Anna wouldn't see a single cent of my estate. Then, I disappeared. I turned off my phone. Ditched my car at a long-term parking lot. And waited for the fireworks to begin. That night, I logged into our home security system remotely. And there it was. Michael was in my house. Sitting at my kitchen table, laughing with Anna like he belonged there. It's done, she said, handing him a drink. No one will find him. No body, no crime. Michael exhaled sharply. Took you long enough. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. They thought I was dead. Perfect. It was time to make them pay. Disappearing was easier than I expected. Everyone believed I was dead, including my own wife. For the next few weeks, I watched everything unfold from the shadows. The police never got involved because Anna never reported me missing. She played the grieving wife well, though. Told my co-workers I'd left town suddenly for personal reasons. Told the kids I needed time alone. But Michael? He moved in almost immediately. Into my house. Sleeping in my bed. I kept tabs on them, gathering every piece of information I could. I wasn't just going to destroy them, I was going to make sure they suffered. First, I needed leverage. One night, I broke into my own house. Anna and Michael were fast asleep upstairs. The house was eerily quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. I knew every inch of this place. I went straight for Anna's laptop. This time, I wasn't looking for emails, I wanted evidence. And I found it. Hidden in a password-protected folder were videos. Videos of them together. Some in hotels. Some in our bed. Worse than that. A scanned document labeled Insurance Policy, $1,000,000, Beneficiary, Anna Mitchell. $1 million. That's why she needed me dead. They hadn't just been planning my murder for love. They were after the payout. That was all I needed. I uploaded everything to a secure drive and slipped out of the house unnoticed. It was time for phase 2. The next morning, I sent Anna an email from an anonymous account. Subject: I know what you did. Body: he won't stay dead forever. Some things refuse to stay buried. Sleep well, Anna. Attached? A single screenshot from the videos. I could only imagine the look on her face when she opened it. And just like that, the walls of her carefully constructed lie started to crack. The real fun started that night. Michael left the house around 9 p.m. I watched from a safe distance as Anna sat alone in the living room, clutching a glass of wine with shaking hands. She kept glancing at her phone, probably waiting for a response to the email. That's when I called her. She answered on the first ring. Hello. Silence. Who is this? She demanded. Her voice was already trembling. I let the silence stretch until I could hear her breathing quicken. Then I whispered, "Miss me?" The glass shattered in her hand. I hung up. I wasn't just going to punish them. I was going to break them. And this was only the beginning. Anna was spiraling. I knew it from the way she clutched her phone everywhere she went, constantly checking over her shoulder like she could feel my presence lurking in the shadows. She hadn't told Michael about the email, yet. That was good. It meant she was already doubting him. By the next day, I escalated things. I started by changing small things around the house. While she was out, I slipped inside and did just enough to unsettle her. A family photo she thought she'd thrown away was suddenly back on the mantel. Her toothbrush was missing. The kitchen knife set was rearranged, with one blade missing. Nothing too obvious. Just enough to make her question herself. And it worked. That night, she was on edge. Every shadow made her flinch. Every creak in the house had her gripping her phone, ready to call someone. Then, when she was at her most vulnerable, I struck again. At 3 a.m., her phone rang. When she answered, I didn't say a word. Just breathed. She hung up. I called back. This time, I whispered, "You look beautiful when you sleep." She screamed. I let the call go dead. The next morning, Michael confronted her. I watched from the security feed I had installed before disappearing. "You're losing it, Anna," he snapped. "Ever since he left, you've been acting paranoid." "I got an email," she whispered. "From someone who knows. They sent a photo of us." Michael's face paled. "What kind of photo?" Her voice cracked. "In our bed." He grabbed her by the shoulders, shaking her. "Who have you told?" "No one," she insisted. "But what if it's him?" Michael scoffed. "That's impossible." She wasn't convinced. Good. That night, I took things a step further. Michael had a work event at some fancy restaurant. Anna was home alone. I broke in, again. I didn't touch her. Didn't let her see me. Instead, I left my wedding ring on her pillow. When she came upstairs and saw it, her breath hitched. She stumbled back, clutching the doorway. Then she ran. Straight out of the house. Straight into the night. Straight to her father's house. That's when I knew. She was scared enough to seek help. And that meant she was getting desperate. It wouldn't be long before she broke completely. I just had to push a little harder. Anna was unraveling fast. That much was obvious. She hadn't slept in days, her face was pale, her eyes hollow. Michael was growing impatient with her paranoia, but I could see the doubt creeping into his own expression. I needed to break them apart. And I knew exactly how to do it. That afternoon, I sent Michael an email. Subject: you should ask her about the money. Body: she's been lying to you, too. Ask her where the insurance payout really went. Ask her why she hasn't told you everything. She's using you just like she used me. Attached was a bank statement. Not mine. Hers. It showed that after my disappearance, Anna withdrew half of the insurance money and transferred it to a private account. One that Michael had no access to. That night, the fight started. I watched from the security feed, sipping my coffee as Michael paced the living room, waving his phone in her face. You took the money. His voice was ice. You said we'd wait. You said we couldn't make any big moves yet. Anna's hands were shaking. I had to. I needed a backup plan in case things went wrong. Michael's jaw clenched. So what? You were planning to run? No, she snapped, but the lie was too obvious. I could see it in his eyes. Doubt. Suspicion. And, finally, the realization that she wasn't just using me. She was using him, too. I had planted the seed. Now I just had to watch it grow. The next day, Michael was gone. I don't mean just out of the house. I mean gone. He wasn't answering her calls. He wasn't responding to texts. Anna was alone. And she was terrified. That night, I called her again. She answered immediately, her breath ragged. Who is this? I let the silence stretch, let the fear seep into her bones. Then I whispered, you're next. She dropped the phone. She was at her breaking point. And I was just getting started. Anna was losing control. Michael was gone. Her father wasn't answering her calls. She was alone in that house, the house she stole from me, pacing from room to room like a trapped animal. And I wasn't done yet. That night, I left another message. Not a call. Not an email. Something worse. While she was upstairs, I slipped into the house and left a single sheet of paper on the kitchen counter. In the center, I wrote just 4 words. I see you, Anna. Then I walked back out into the night, knowing exactly what would happen when she found it. At 2:43 a.m., she lost it. The security feed showed her screaming into the phone, tears running down her face. She was yelling at someone, but I didn't know who, until she shouted one name loud enough for the cameras to pick up. Michael, you coward. You promised me. Ah. So she still thought he was behind this. Perfect. The next morning, I turned up the pressure. Michael had abandoned her, but I needed to make sure he never came back. So I sent him a text. From a burner phone. Me. Anna told me everything. The police have the emails, the bank statements. I suggest you run. Michael took the bait. Less than an hour later, he bought a one-way plane ticket to Mexico. He was out. For good. Anna was completely alone now. And she knew it. That night, I watched as she poured herself a glass of wine. Then another. Then another. By midnight, she was drunk, sobbing into her hands, rocking back and forth on the couch. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then I remembered. She wanted me dead. She took everything from me. She threw our kids away like garbage when I was gone. And whatever pity I had left, burned away. Tomorrow, I would end this. For good. Anna was a wreck. She hadn't left the house in 2 days. The curtains were drawn tight, her phone calls went unanswered, and the once pristine home we built together was now a mess of empty wine bottles and untouched takeout containers. She was trapped, just like I wanted her. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Because the worst thing I could do to her wasn't to scare her. It was to make her face the truth. At 6 p.m., I made my final move. I walked right up to my own front door and knocked. Loud. Hard. Deliberate. Inside, I heard her gasp. She wasn't expecting anyone. Not anymore. For a moment, there was silence. Then the sound of hesitant footsteps creeping toward the door. The peephole went dark as she pressed her eye against it. I stepped back into the porch light. Let her see me. Let her see the ghost she thought she buried. The scream that tore out of her was beautiful. I heard her stumble back, knocking over a table in her panic. I could imagine it, her hands shaking, her breath coming in gasps, her mind scrambling for an explanation. But there wasn't one. I was alive. And she knew it. Anna, I called, my voice calm. Steady. Controlled. Open the door. Nothing. I smiled. Come on. Don't be rude. Still nothing. I heard the lock rattle like she was trying to make sure it was bolted shut, as if that would keep me out. I let the silence stretch. Let her fear build. Then, in a quiet voice, I said the words that finally broke her. Michael ran. Your father abandoned you. And now, it's just you and me. A sob. She slid to the floor behind the door, curling into herself like a child. Pathetic. I let her sit in her terror for another minute before delivering the final blow. The kids, I murmured. Do you even know where they are? She flinched. You don't, I cut in, voice sharp. Because you threw them away. Like garbage. More sobs. I leaned in close to the door, my next words a whisper. But I didn't. I let that sink in. I found them. Anna stopped breathing. I could almost hear her mind racing, replaying every selfish decision she'd made. Every lie she told. I wanted her to feel it. The weight of it all. The loss. The guilt. The helplessness. Because after tonight, she wouldn't have anything left. Anna was breaking apart. I could hear it in her breathing, ragged, uneven. The way she gasped between sobs, her body folding in on itself behind the door. She had spent months thinking she won. Believing she had erased me from her life, collected her insurance money, and moved on. But now she knew the truth. She hadn't won. She had just delayed the inevitable. You're lying, she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, like she had been screaming long before I even knocked on the door. I chuckled softly. Oh, Anna. Do you really think I'd come all this way just to lie to you? A pause. She wanted to believe that. Needed to. Because if I was telling the truth, if I really had found the kids, if I really had come back for her, then her world wasn't just falling apart. It was already gone. Where are they? She finally asked. I let the question hang in the air. Let her suffer. Then, I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen. A second later, hers vibrated from the floor inside the house. She scrambled for it, and when she saw what I sent, I heard her gasp. A photo. My 3 children sitting around a dinner table, laughing. Safe. Happy. With me. Her fingers shook so badly I could hear them tapping against the screen. How? You never deserved them. My voice was colder now, all amusement gone. You and Michael threw them away like trash when I died. Sent them to an orphanage. Left them to rot because your perfect little life didn't have room for them anymore. I didn't have a choice, she croaked. No, I agreed. You had a decision. And you chose him. She sobbed again, raw and ugly. Good. I wanted her to feel this. To drown in it. Because I had spent years drowning in my own grief. Now. It was her turn. I crouched outside the door, close enough that I knew she could hear every word. You were so busy plotting my death, I murmured, that you never stopped to think about what would happen after. She whimpered. I smiled. You thought you were playing a game, I continued. That you could rewrite the story however you wanted. But you forgot something important, Anna. I paused, letting the moment stretch. Then I whispered, the dead don't stay buried forever. She let out a strangled cry. And I let the silence swallow her whole. The final blow. I stood up, rolling my shoulders. Here's what's going to happen. She flinched, like she already knew whatever I was about to say would be final. You're going to sign over every last penny of the insurance money. Every single cent you stole from me. She didn't argue. Didn't even hesitate. That was the thing about guilt. Once it sank its claws into you, it made you weak. I will, she stammered. I'll sign it all over to you. Just, please. Don't take the kids away from me forever. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. You don't get it, do you? My voice was quiet, but deadly. She blinked, confused. I leaned in one last time. You already lost them. The words hit her like a knife to the gut. And I let them sink in. I turned and walked away, leaving her sobbing on the floor. By the time I reached my car, I felt lighter. Stronger. I had won. Not just by taking back the money. Not just by making sure she had nothing left. But because now, she had to live with what she did. Alone. Forever. And that was the greatest revenge of all. I didn't look back. As I drove away from the house that used to be mine, from the woman who had tried to erase me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Anna was done. I had taken everything from her, the money, the security, the children she had abandoned. But the best part? I never had to lift a hand. She destroyed herself. I just made sure she felt every second of it. The next morning, the final piece fell into place. Anna signed over every last penny of the $1 million insurance payout. I didn't even have to threaten her, she just handed it over like a beaten animal, too broken to fight. But it wasn't about the money. Not really. It was about making sure she had nothing left. And as soon as the money hit my account, I sent a single text. Me. You will never see them again. This is the last time we ever speak. She replied instantly, her messages coming in rapid bursts. Anna. Please, don't do this. I'll change, I swear. Just let me talk to them. Please, I'm begging you. I didn't respond. I never would. 15 years later. I built a new life. A real life. After taking the kids from the orphanage, I raised them the way they deserved, with love, with care, with the truth. They knew everything about what Anna and Michael had done. But I didn't let it define us. We moved to a different state, started fresh. I built my career from the ground up, climbing higher than I ever had before. Eventually, I became CEO of my own company. I remarried. Not just to anyone, to a woman who truly loved me. Someone loyal. Someone real. We had 2 more children, and for the first time in my life, I understood what happiness really felt like. But Anna? Her life became hell. Michael never came back. Her father disowned her. She burned through what little money she had left in less than a year, and without financial support, she lost everything. The house? Foreclosed. The reputation she built? Ruined. No one wanted to be around her. She had lied to too many people, betrayed too many. The only thing left for her was regret. I knew all of this because, despite everything, she still tried to contact me. Every year, like clockwork, she would send an email. A desperate, pleading message asking for forgiveness. For a second chance. For anything. I never replied. I never would. Because for Anna, there was no escape. She had made her choices. And now, she had to live with them.